Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for taking the time to join our on-demand series on subcontractor management. Many of you may have participated in our earlier Veriforce Select Client series on subcontractor management, where we had the opportunity to be joined by David Bates and James Junkin, and we're also rejoined with them today. This is a special teaser to our upcoming live panel session that we're going to be having on subcontractor management coming up in June. As we prepare for that, some of the key things that we're going to focus on is why is Veriforce so committed to not only subcontractor management, but our continued mission on bringing workers home safely from high hazard jobs. And as you all have heard, and as we continue to express, this is at the core of what we do each and every day. Our people, our processes, and solutions continue to be the foundation of this particular mission. And we hope that you watching this session today also see that as your mission, because it is our goal to uphold your mission and enable your success. As you all know, Veriforce is part of a large global network of over 750 hiring clients. We support over 100 different languages as we roll out different contractor organizations and clients all around the world. We have well over 50,000 contractors that we support, both from an education and training perspective and a life support perspective as well. And we do specialized trainings as well to enable those contractors and the companies that they work for to continue to be on the forefront of the things they need to know to be ready to be on the site and to perform their job to the best of their capabilities. We have over 5.5 million individual workers working for these contractor companies in over 120 different countries. And to make sure that we continue to keep those workers trained, we have well over 9,000 accredited trainers and evaluators. So that's a little bit about Veriforce and our role to create an end-to-end solution for the entire supply chain risk management process, from how we pre-qualify our contractors to making sure that they are appropriately onboarded, which we're going to hear later from James and David talking about, controlling the work, ensuring that we are assessing and furthermore evaluating how the work went at the end. So this is our end-to-end life cycle that continues to be a cyclical process throughout the journey of our subcontractors. As we all know, subcontractors are really an extension of the company. And as such, they're a very critical part of our operations in how we do our work, how we perform for ultimately the hiring client or the companies to whom they are ultimately attached to. And in every client that we serve, they are probably one of the most critical and highly visible workers as part of the workforce. And we're going to talk about why that's the case and what we need to do to ensure their success as well. So I'm going to open the floor up to James and David first to talk about why subcontract. Why is this so important? What are some of the reasons that we need to be carrying out and thinking about around subcontractor management? So David, I'd like to start with you, and James, I want to have you chime in.
Okay. Well, first of all, we know that subcontracting gives us an expertise on job sites that general contractors or prime contractors may not possess themselves. So it gives for the whole project, it gives some more competencies to control what's going on out there with specialized trades, and we can hire special trades to get the work done.
Thank you, David. And James, along those lines, why subcontract? Why do you see contractors actually subcontracting some or all of the work?
Well, I think in today's post-pandemic work market, we've seen some dynamic changes in how we go about doing work and who actually is performing the work. Prior to the pandemic, we were talking about the great retirement. Now we're talking about the great resignation. And that's impacted companies in ways that I think we might not have planned for or we envisioned. So in my experience, you're starting to see more and more subcontractors being utilized, not only for specialized activities, but for activities that a general contractor may simply not be able to staff. They don't have the manpower for it. In that capacity is where risk lies. So while we're supplementing our workforce, we're reaching out to people that have specialized skills, we may inadvertently be increasing the risk within our supply chain. And I'm looking forward to talking with you guys today about how to reduce that risk and make sure that all workers come home safe.
Thanks, James. I appreciate that. And you hit the nail head on. In such a short period of time, we saw, and this was a trend across multiple industries, where there was the great retiring happening. And then in a post-COVID pandemic world, we're now seeing the great resignation. And so this has been one of the topics that I know has been not only a trend, but a continuous discussion and how we solve it. So as we think about the ways in which we solve this and ultimately better vet our subcontractors, why should we better vet subcontractors? And I know that we've kind of touched on this, and we're going to touch on this more so in our upcoming webinar that's happening in June, our live webinar. But any one of you want to share why it's so important to vet the subcontractor?
Well, there's definitely a liability taken on when a subcontractor is hired on a project or at a job site. And so you can imagine if safety and health regulations are not followed and injuries, illnesses occur, or God forbid a fatality occurs on your job site, there's definitely liability that comes to the prime or general that hired them. So during this full webinar, we'll go into some of these specifics of what happens if that does occur, and why it pays to have a robust vetting program.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of a vetting program, there are some key items that need to be vet. James, you want to share a little bit about some of these items? And I know again that we'll be talking more so about these items in our live session. But what are your thoughts in terms of key critical items that need to be vetted for subcontractors?
Well, at the beginning, in a pre-qualification phase, we need to determine, does the contractor really have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to do this job and to do it safely? So we need to go back, we need to look at the credentials, the work history, not just that they were the low bidder for this particular project, but can they perform the work? And perform the work from a quality standpoint, but also from a safety history and policy standpoint. I've done a tremendous amount of audits for Veriforce and some for Mariner Gulf. And what we typically find is contractors do not really have a process for vetting their subcontractors. And if they do have a written program, they're not necessarily following that written program. So we need to understand, can they do the work, and look at their safety history as compared to our policy. What's going to be our TRR cutoff? What's going to be our EMR cutoff? What type of workforce are we looking for, and what conditions are they going to be working in? And does this communication filter down to the subcontractor so they understand exactly what role that they're playing in this project? And then insurance, obviously, is a huge component of subcontract. Are the insurance requirements that the subcontractor is being held to equal that of the general contractor to the hiring client? Do we have a written contract in place? And look, I've been through all these many times, and these are points based on experience that sometimes get missed in the ramp up to hurry up and try to get a job done. But we want to make sure, can they do the job? Do we have a policy in place? Are we following that policy? Do they have the right insurance? And it's okay to reach back in time and to call some people that they've worked for in the past to make sure that they understand, or we understand, that they're capable of doing the job.
Absolutely. And I know in a few moments, we're going to be hearing from Michael Chapman, product manager with Veriforce, on subcontractor management and some of the things that we can track in our solution to to help ensure that we are vetting the subcontractor appropriately and getting them, most importantly, safe and vetted to appropriately do the job and return home safely from those jobs as well. So I know that also, David, and you've spoken, and you certainly have a lot of history and background from an OSHA perspective, being with OSHA prior to your retirement. And many of you that are listening in our recording today will have heard David as well as James in our earlier Veriforce Select Client Series speaking about subcontractors. But David, any one key point or takeaway, kind of a teaser, if you will, that you would want people listening to this session thinking about from an OSHA perspective?
Well, I think everyone needs to realize that when you hire contractors, that project now becomes a multi-employer work site, and OSHA does issue citations under this multi-employer work site policy that it's established. And so this creates a number of employers and categories of employers on a job site. So when you tune into the full webinar, we're going to break down those 4 categories: the exposing employer, the creating employer, the correcting employer, and the controlling employer, which will be very important for those primes or general contractors that are tuning in. We will break down how OSHA evaluates all of those, and under what circumstances OSHA might issue a citation to a controlling employer or an employer whose employees are not actually the exposed ones on a job site to a hazard. So it'll be very beneficial to.
Yeah, thank you. And you said it would be very beneficial to those that are watching, especially around preventing poor subcontractor management performance, correct?
Correct.
And as you can see here, a lot of the things, David, that David has spoken about around pre-qualifying subcontractors, ensuring that, most importantly, the expectations and the requirements and work rules and policies are clearly communicated. And James, something that you spoke to earlier around the continued monitoring. This is something that we fail to see sometimes being consistently followed. How do we continue to monitor the quality, the time, the safety standpoint, all of those audits and inspections that are happening from a continuous improvement perspective? And then when an incident should occur, how are we applying any corrective actions back into the work site to prevent a reoccurrence, so that we've got that continued ongoing enforcement of rules and ultimately the post-job reviews and audits that are happening. So James, any other teasers here that you want to share that will be particular of interest to those that are watching this on-demand session as they think about attending the live session that we'll have in a few weeks?
Every incident involving multi-employer activities really comes down to failures in communication loops. So we're going to talk about those communication loops, the things that we should be communicating before we go to work, the things that we should be communicating during the process, and what we should be discussing in the post-job review to make sure we have a cycle of continuous improvement to prevent incidents from occurring.
Thank you, James. And certainly part of that will be ensuring that we have a subcontractor management policy in place from how we ensure that we are addressing the ways around exposing an employer, creating the employer, correcting the employer, and controlling everything that we've just talked about, just a clear summary. And also there are some very specific reasonable care factors that we want to focus on as well. We're going to be getting into this discussion even more so on our webinar here, but we've left you with some points to think about, especially as we really focus on how we ensure that we are keeping the control of work in check and that we are implementing those factors to ensure that the employer's safety and health management processes and overall solution and system are in place. And we're again going to be talking with Michael Chapman on our solutions. We are also going to leave you with some case studies and other reference materials. There are some 4 specific cases, and we're going to get into some of the details on those cases that David is going to discuss with us in our webinar, along with a special white paper that we've created just for you on the 6 best practices of subcontractor management. So those are some of the things that you can expect, but we don't want to leave you hanging here. We're also going to turn things over to Michael Chapman, our product manager from Veriforce. And Michael, I know that for the past several months, you've been working with a cross-functional team. And I think this is key and critical to our viewers and listeners today, that when we talk about a product here at Veriforce, this is not just a siloed view of a product. This is the true development of a solution. And one of the key differentiators between Veriforce and other competitors is that when we go to launch a product, it's not just about involving one aspect of the company, but it's a cross-functional launch aspect to ensure that we're assessing all of the impacts and creating a true solution in how we roll out a product. And Michael, apologies for stealing your thunder a little bit, but I'd love for you to further evaluate on the Veriforce subcontractor management solution, and why is this important to not only the company or the hiring client, but to our contractors and subcontractors?
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Yeah, we think this is going to be really important for you, the contractors, in a few ways here. So, I mean, yeah, you really can't control what you can't see, right? So Veriforce makes it easy for hiring clients and prime contractors to see and control who is performing work for you. And, you know, we also offer visibility into the entire supply chain from a hiring client's perspective, and also, yeah, you know, you as your prime, whoever's working beneath you, so you can make smarter decisions on how to manage risk in your workforce. And then our mission at Veriforce, like Andy mentioned earlier, is really to bring the workers home safely. And that's what this solution is all about. It brings that third level, the hiring client, the prime, and then the sub being the third level. We want all subcontractor workers to come home safely as well by following these requirements. And then finally, this all happens in one single solution and one system. So, you know, no more need to manage your primes, manage your subs in different systems, or use older methods like spreadsheets. So this is a sophisticated, more complete view with far less effort than you're probably used to.
Thank you, Michael. And we will have actually 2 special gifts for you all. One, following this recording, we're also going to be providing a virtual recording of subcontractor management. And in our session, our live session that's happening later in June, Michael will be joining us again for a live demo of subcontractor management. But we also want to share with you some key benefits, as Michael also shared earlier, the full visibility into the subcontracted workforce, how this also supersedes all of the manual intensive steps that we've seen and heard from our hiring clients around tracking subcontractor management from the full life cycle, as you heard James and David speak to earlier. And I think critical, you know, is around the reducing the risk of non-compliant subcontractors. This is extremely critical because as we all know, they are the extension of the ultimate hiring client and the company. So when there are incidences, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, but if there are incidences, OSHA is looking specifically at the hiring client or the company that was ultimately responsible or held accountable for doing that work. Is that not correct?
That is correct. Well, and we will go over how OSHA evaluates that during the webinar as well.
Wonderful, thank you. So as we hear about the benefits to subcontractors, likely as well, there are benefits to the contractors around how subcontractor management and the Veriforce subcontractor management solution reduces the risk of employing non-compliant subcontractors, greater visibility into compliance for the hiring client, as well as a way to seamlessly and easily track from a people, process, and technology perspective, leveraging the Veriforce subcontractor management solution. So more information on that to come. So what can you do now? We are really excited to launch this subcontractor management program. And most importantly, and this is again something that you're not going to find elsewhere, we have launched and created a subcontractor management cohort program. So we recognize that each company, each client, hiring client, has their own specific subcontractor management policies and procedures. But how do you know what the other companies, what other peers of yours might know? Or what are some of the best practices that your peers might be following? This is a key reason why we have created a cohort program. And starting the week of June the 13th, you will have the opportunity to enroll in a subcontractor management cohort along with other peers. We're keeping the cohorts very small and intimate, so we're only going to have up to 8 companies per cohort. And there will be the opportunity to join one of several cohorts along the way. It requires very minimal time from you, but it also allows you to connect with other similar clients in the industry or other companies in the industry to learn what they're doing, as well as get your subcontractors and contractors connected as well. So more information about the cohort model will be forthcoming, but in the interim, be on the lookout for our communications. That's going to include this recorded on-demand session, along with the white paper and additional resources that you've heard us speak to earlier, and the live subcontractor management session and panel presentation, where James and David and Michael and others will be back to join us, along with myself. We also encourage you to talk to your customer success manager about SCM. Learn how you can get involved, how you can leverage the solution, how you can get that solution turned on, how you can join and sign up from with a subcontractor management cohort that we'll be launching, and talk to your contractors. Find out if they're using subs, and if also, so that you know, that's one of the things that we also do on your behalf. We follow up with contractors as well, so that you don't have to. But it's a good idea to really have a clear understanding of the contractors that you're working with today and whether or not they're using subs on their work site. So we're going to leave you with this and a series of other job aids for the hiring client, for the contractors, and for general use, including other videos. So this and more to come as we officially launch our subcontractor management solution, not product, but solution for all of our entire clients, contractors, and subcontractors, as we tackle and resolve the entire workforce chain from beginning to end and helping you achieve your mission. So thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this session today. Again, I'm Andy Kearney, Senior Vice President of Customer Success here at Veriforce, joined by James Junkin, who you just heard from, David and Michael as well. So stay tuned for more to come, and stay safe out there in the interim. Thanks, everyone.